Hi, everyone. I'm Carl Burok. Welcome back to the Jaguar Football Podcast. With us is the head coach of Seckman Football, Dr. Nicholas Bear. Coach Bear, very good to see you. And we look
Hey,
at the
Carl.
calendar here. We're transitioning from one, milestone to another here in the next few days.
Yeah, it's extremely busy time here, and with Seckman football, things are really starting to heat up, kind of at all levels. And for the high school, that's meaning we're finishing up here with our summer weights and conditioning. Our last team lift until really school starts is going to be on Thursday. Because next week we transition to camp, and that's basically, that's how we use. We've talked about how teams use their different 20 contact days. Some spread them out through the summer. For us, we really back end it here the last 2 weeks of July. So, I mean, we're basically in the thick of it as far as planning and working towards the season, and competitions for positions really start to heat up as we put on the helmet and shoulder pads and guys really start to work and carve out a role on our football team.
Yeah, Coach, we'll dig into a little bit of that because I know that on the podcast last year, you're talking about the different, you know, rankings and depth charts, and
Mm-hmm.
we have plenty of time to dig in there. But today, I thought we'd continue with the offseason updates. You gave us a little preview about what's in store for the program starting next week. Also, wanted to talk the Junior Jaguar registration, go over those numbers. And then for, I believe, the third year in a row, we have an update to the Valley as far as the facilities go. So, well, we could dig in on the stadium lights. So, Coach, the offseason, the grind continues. You had your players there early. You participated into some 7-on-7s. What has you excited as you move into this transitional period of the camp?
I mean, for me, and I can guarantee you the boys would say the same thing. It's finally, when we get to camp, it's football. We've had all these different things. Everybody has different commitments. This sport, that sport, this vacation. We get to camp. That's the commitment. That's when we really start to um, build our team, become together as one and really start working together as a unit. The off-season conditioning, throughout the spring, throughout the winter, these guys have been building their bodies. And now ultimately it's time to start running those bodies into other human beings. And playing the game of football. So, they're excited about it. They're ready for the physicality. And for me with this group, what I'm most excited about, quite honestly, is just how tight they are. We wanted to improve our communication. We wanted to improve, how much we care about each other and showing that, and really starting to feel that way as we have worked through the summer, and hopefully that should continue as we get to the field for camp.
Yeah, Coach, I was during our dead week, our most recent one. I was listening, to some of the older podcasts on the
Mhm.
drive, and a couple podcasts ago, you were talking about the affinity for your players, and you felt that perhaps that was a little bit of the difference in our last game of the season in the playoffs against Northwest, where you said you felt that Northwest had that bond that was perhaps stronger than our team on at least that Friday night, and so.
Yeah.
Um,
So I could go into that a little bit.
yeah,
We kind of really starting to think about those things and kind of thinking about this team and where I hope to be a little bit better at. And we don't really talk a lot about individual positions here, individual players, but the kind of the closest thing I can kind of really put it to is I look at our linebacking core this year. We have 3 or 4 seniors there. Tony Fight, Brody Mosello, Chase Borowski, and Elliot Burris. We have 4 linebackers there that are really good friends. They get along together very well. Very rarely you see one without the other. You can already tell that there's a bond there. There's a brotherhood there, and that matters. Whereas previously in the past, maybe at the linebacker position, we've had a few guys we've always lacked some communication there. Never skill. We've never lacked skill at the position, but maybe communication. One or the other guys. We never really had. We was always a senior and a junior, or a senior and a sophomore. And while they were teammates and they worked hard together, there was always just that little bit that was missing. So, it's hard to really put your finger on it sometimes. But when I think about it now, what I'm hoping is a little bit different with this team next year is that linebacking group. Those four guys, and then you add in the juniors that we have in Jaden O'Day, Trevor Morvac. You got Leighton Meckley in there, who's another senior, Leighton Brillhart, sophomore Hayden Bean. Seeing a group like that maybe come together and be a little bit tighter, that's only going to, fix the communication on the field and then give you that little bit extra. We kind of had a little bit of fun. I call it fun last week. Finish or die was kind of our motto last week with our sprints, right? And it kind of stemmed from, Carl, I coach a 10U baseball team, right? And let's just, you've been there before, the ups and the downs. Anybody that's seen 10U baseball knows you could lose a game 17-1, and then come back and play your best game. And we finished up our season last week. We had a doubleheader. And it was one of those things where we literally played the worst game of the season against a team that we had already beaten 2 times. And I think we lost like 20-2. Well, they're 10. And we had our last game right after that. And of course, we're playing the first place team. That's just how it goes. So, I'm standing there. I'm a little frustrated, as you can imagine. I'm hot. And I'm just thinking, okay, how the hell are we going to get through this last game? It's just the last game. Let's just get through this thing and move on to football. And I bring the boys in, and we talk a little bit how, the Cubs won 20-2 one game. And then I think that same week they lost to the Cardinals like by 18 runs. And it's just baseball. And we talked about going out there and making plays. And that's kind of where hit or die kind of came into the picture. Hit or die. That was our mantra. Look, don't go up there afraid to the plate. You got 2 options. Hit the baseball or die. Now, we're not actually talking about dying, but if those are your 2 options, what are you going to do? You're going to go up there and get it done, where in the first game, we couldn't feel the ground ball to save our life. They were going with 2. We were afraid. They were coming off high. Hey, field or die. The pop-ups, we were, kind of slow-footed to them. Not in the second game. We were freaking sprinting out there like Jim Edmonds. Catch the ball or die. That was just kind of the mentality. Go all in. And that was kind of, the next morning we kind of took it to our run, right? Finish the sprint or die. Finish the tackle or die. And it kind of goes back to that last game and kind of coming full circle here. How the hell did we get here? In my mind, when I go back to that Northwest game, for Northwest, it was beat Seckman or die, right? And that gave them that extra inch, that extra little oomph, to win a 1-touchdown game in the playoffs. And that's what we were missing. So trying to really capture that with this group, this new team, to make sure that doesn't happen. And we've talked a lot about adversity and things like that we're going to be facing. You can only do that together. So that's kind of really what I'm excited about, is kind of taking this group a step further with that. And I have a feeling they're going to be pretty receptive with it.
Yeah, that's great. And, especially with the linebacking cores, I know on some previous podcasts last season, you were talking about how the linebackers are a vital, important part of the defensive scheme at Seckman. And so having those playing together probably all those years, I imagine they may be, because some of the names I recognize, right, they may have gone back to the junior JAG program. So having that ability to play together and know that I'm going to do what I need to do, and I know my friend who lines up to the side of me, they're going to do what they need to do. And we got this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about defense. Typically on a defense, the star of the defense is the defense. If you have a player that doesn't trust the people around them, so they're trying to do more than what we need them to do, that's when you could see defenses break down. So ultimately we know, as we are, 6 new opponents this year, we kind of have a pretty good profile on them and what we need to do defensively to stop them. That trust has to be there, because the guy that's going to be a step or 2 quicker than you got to hold your leverage to trust that the guy next to you is going to hold their leverage. Because if you go over the top just a little bit, we're going to look pretty silly. He's going to cut right underneath us. So yeah, those are the things that we are excited as a staff, as a coaching staff, to really start pouring into the players here. when we get out to camp.
Very good. And so with camp starting next week, we talked about like what's in store for the players and some contact, and I'm sure the coaches get up for it as well. For parents, maybe newer to the program, what should they expect, or what advice do you have for them to relay to their player so that they're able to make that transition from this off-season weights and conditioning more to like getting closer and closer to game day?
Yeah, I mean, this is what you've worked for. This is your opportunity. Go out. This is where if you have a player that gets to midseason or maybe last season wasn't happy with their playing time or their role on the team, this is where that changes. This is where you come out and outwork and show coaches that you really want to be here and that you're somebody that we can trust to put in a position to make plays. When it comes to our freshman parents that are new, had a good little talk with our freshman group this year, actually this morning, about, okay, we're getting kind of to the end. So now guys are like, well, what position am I going to be? I kind of want to play this position. Can I do this? And when it comes to positions, it's team need. We're building a football team. So, sometimes that means a player doesn't get to play their first choice of position. And we've asked a lot of guys to make sacrifices for the team and play the position the team needs them to play, so we can be competitive and win football games. And I always go back to a guy, Robert Frank. We're going to deep now from 20. Graduated in 2021. He had played D line for us all 3 years. We were a little low at the offensive tackle position, and Frank had dreams of playing college football on the defensive side of the football, but we asked him and we required him to make that sacrifice and play outside tackle for us this year. All that did was pay off with 9 wins. And Robert Frank, he's going into his, he's a 5th-year senior at McKendree University. It did not get in the way of his college football dreams. He's at McKendree and he's going to be a starter for them on the defensive line this year. So he's a guy that I always kind of go back to, especially when you have a freshman, especially my freshman linemen who all want to play defensive line and not offensive line. I'll have a few of those conversations, but these are the sacrifices that we make for the team, and we may ask you to do something that wasn't your first choice. And it's really simple to also say once these positions are figured out, they change yearly. A guy can go from offense to defense. I mean, that happens every year. We have a guy in Braden Hupp this year, going to be a senior. He's played offense, all 3 years, and now this year we're moving him to the defense. So we are trying to get guys in positions to help us out because we want guys to have a role. If you don't feel like you have a role on the team, then we've made a mistake. So ultimately, that role can change year to year depending on how guys develop. So. That's one thing I would encourage parents to talk to their players about, especially the younger ones. And, a lot of the older guys, it's already set. But as we get out to camp and we start evaluating those young players, those freshmen, there's a few sophomores that have jumped sides of the football as well. You continue to encourage them to become better football players and take on the role that the team needs them to play.
No, I think we talked about last year is like, just being a part of something larger than oneself and, you're filling the role that the team needs you. And so, those conversations I imagine are more forthcoming, but excited for you and the players and the coaches to get out back on the field. And we look forward to more updates on that as we get closer and closer to week 1. We put a little message out on our Facebook page last week, about 4 or 5 days ago. So we were 50 days away from kickoff, Coach, and 50 days 4 days ago. So
I had not put that number to it. Sorry, I'm going day by day at this point. But when you say 50, that's a little. We got a lot of work.
We needed some content, so
good.
Might as well throw it out there. But no, 50 days.
You.
Folks are excited, and there are a lot of questions asked about. Well, when's the Fox game? And here's the full schedule. So, a lot of excitement building up on social media and just within the community itself. And so we can't wait to get out there on the 28th of August, and show what we got. You wanted to talk about the junior jag registration that continues. I know that the deadline is like either today or very, very close to have a personalized jersey. Wanted
Right.
to talk to you about that, and then
Yeah.
just
You know,
the
we
numbers
are.
in general.
Yeah, we're winding down here with our junior Jaguar registration. Uh, we would never say we're cutting off registration, Carl, because we never want to turn anybody away. But yeah, equipment fittings and jersey fittings, those begin tomorrow night. And obviously, if someone wants to sign up after, they can. We just can't guarantee that they'll have the name on the back of the jersey. Other than that, we'll get them the helmet and shoulder pads. But yeah, all this exciting things going on with the high school. Same thing with the junior Jaguars. We're rolling into really the second year of it being under the umbrella of the Jaguar Football Booster Club, and I'm excited to really take a step forward and have another successful year. And then when you say success, it's really important to kind of really define what that success looks like, because we're not measuring success. We talk about this at the high school banquet. It's not always measuring success with trophies or in this case, fourth and fifth grade championships. We measure success at the junior Jaguar level. If a player played last year, do they want to come back and play again this year? Are they developing? Are they getting better? From the first snap to the last. Because ultimately, like I said, we're not building towards seventh and eighth grade championships. We're building towards varsity football wins and getting these kids want to play football at the high school. So, last year our registration right at 190 athletes playing, youth football, second grade all the way to eighth grade. Um, those numbers, which are already really high, those numbers have climbed to 220 as last checked, and it still every day we get a couple more. So 220 athletes, playing junior Jaguar football here from second grade all the way to eighth grade. So I talked about measuring success. Year one going into year two, that's a success. With that combined with the high school numbers, you have 375, young athletes suiting up and playing football in our community, and that's pretty wild to think about. So as we go into this second year, and I just met with all of the head coaches last night for our junior Jaguar programs. We did a lot of good things last year, but it's important that we keep working to improve. There's things we can always get better at, and for us, it's always playing time. No one is signing up their son to play junior Jaguar football to watch them stand on the sideline. Everybody wants their kid to play. So how can we as coaches, talk to parents and communicate to parents and make sure that we're getting everybody an opportunity to grow? Because ultimately, yes, you get better at practice, but until you get out into the game, that's where the true development happens. So how do we ensure we're doing that while keeping our teams competitive? And a lot of good conversations from all of our coaches last night, and I really get the feeling that they care about each one of our individual athletes. So I'm excited to hear that. One other thing we had to do was pretty wild, Carl, is we always combine our second and third grade to make one team. We have 45
Wow.
second and third grade players. And in our league, Northwest and Fox are the only other two teams that have a second and third grade team. So, your Lindberghs doesn't have a team until fifth grade. Summit doesn't have to start till fourth grade. Eureka doesn't even start till fourth grade. Same with Lafayette. So we, probably have one of the largest, and I'm not going to, don't quote me, but one of the largest second, third grade groups, not only in Jefferson County, but probably one in the greater St. Louis area that's attached to our high school. So it's very important for us to make sure we get that right. And so what we made the decision to do was actually create two teams, two second, third grade teams. Because, Carl, if there's 45 players, Carl, a little math question. If there's 45 players and 11 of them are on the field, how many are on the sideline?
That would be 45, you said? 44? So
Yeah.
like 33 on the side, 34 on the sideline.
34 on the sideline.
Yeah.
34 second and third graders on the sideline. That's too many, right? That's a zoo. So we made the decision to split them up, and really what that's going to do is going to maximize, number one, their development. They're going to be out there, they're going to be playing, they're all going to have a role on the team. Number two, their love for the sport. They're not going to be standing around, they're going to be playing. So I'm really excited about that. We've got two coaches, that have stepped up. One that we're going to split the teams down right down the middle. With second grade, if we have 12 second graders, 6 on one team, 6 on the other. If we have, whatever the number, 16 returning third graders, we're going to do 8 on one team, 8 on another. And then all of our new third graders, we'll split them down to even as well. Make these two teams as even as possible. The two guys leading it, Ben Burke will be leading one group, and the other one is Mike Leedy. Both these guys are Seckman dudes. They played high school football with me. They were in my graduating class. They were both linemen for me, and led the way and blocked for me, and we had a lot of good times. So for me, it's important in my position to know that I have two guys down there that I can trust. And really, that's all the way up and down with these head coaches now at the junior Jaguar level. I can say, maybe not so much last year, which is pretty obvious with some of the evidence that we have. But this year, I truly trust all the men that we're putting in front of our players this year. And I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for, the second, third grade group. In theory, some of these guys are going to be playing football for the next 10 years together. And, I'll be here to kind of see it at the end. So I'm excited for that.
The coach, that is so fantastic. Those numbers are just amazing. And then I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago or the 2 podcasts ago, where you had your senior barbecue and you're literally saying, like, look to your left, look to your right. One of your folks that you played maybe freshman year wouldn't be there. So to have this large of a group start off in that second and third, and I would imagine it's only going to grow as they progress through elementary and then get into middle school. Gosh, that's a great opportunity. And
yeah, and we talked about it a little bit last night too. And the more I do this, and the more I kind of see how teams are built and who sticks and not, like, I look at this year's senior class and the senior classes that I've had. 90% of these senior classes that we have are junior Jaguar players. We talk about how I go out and recruit, and I certainly do recruit guys to play freshman year. And every year we end up with 2 or 3 starters on the varsity that may not have played youth football. But the majority of our team, is always built of this core guys that have played, together for a long time. And we've talked about players quitting before, and they quit for various reasons. But if you've been playing since you were in second or third grade, it's a lot harder to quit when you get to the high school, because that's just what you do, right? Whereas if I come out freshman year, it's a little bit easier for me to quit, and that's kind of what's been frustrating me a little bit this off season. At the high school level with some guys I wish would hold on and keep playing and keep developing. But I talked about it with the coaches last night. We have 35, 40 kids on each of our teams. That's awesome. That's great. We got to keep these groups together and keep building and growing and keeping them excited about playing the game. So, it's just one of those things where these really 7 youth coaches are probably the 7 most important people in the program. With their influence, with the words that they say, and with their loyalty to the program. So, hopefully, I know these guys understand their responsibilities, and I'm excited to watch them get started.
Well, we certainly like to keep tabs on their development, and we look forward to them taking the field. Coming
Carl,
up
one more thing on top of that too.
Yep.
Obviously with the numbers, we have a lot of new families this year, new players on the team, and for me, my sons too, they were new players on the team at one time. Both of my boys entered a team in 6th grade, and I'll be quite honest with you, we did not feel very welcomed onto those teams when we came. And I really hit it with the coaches too. We have a lot of new families, a lot of new players. When someone joins a team, they are a member of the team. They're like, that first year is always tough. You're not expecting the world out of a kid that first year, but we need them on the team. We want them to feel like it, like they're a part of it, right? Whereas, my son and my family, we always felt like, well, we weren't a part of what happened in third and fourth and fifth grade, so we could never really understand. Well, that's just not true. We're moving so far past that, I can't even tell you how far that is in the rearview mirror of where our program is heading. Whether your son's coming out for the first time in sixth grade, first time in fifth grade, second grade, eighth grade, yeah, there are going to be some guys on the team with a little bit more experience. But my hope is that they feel welcomed by the players, and that you feel welcomed by the families and the coaches that are already established on those teams too, because we want them here. I talked about that first year that you play football. I don't care if it's sophomore year, if it's freshman year, if your first year is eighth grade, or if your first year is in third grade. It's hard. We're asking you to do things that aren't normal. You're running your body into another human being. You're being physical. It takes guys, sometimes it takes a year to really figure out that physical piece that, if I hit somebody, I'm not going to break. I'm not made of glass. So if you have a new athlete this year, there's going to be ups and downs. I can remember my oldest, the number of nights he came home crying, I'm just not very good. Well, you're not very good yet, right? You have to keep working, keep coming back. So that's kind of a message I wanted to make sure gets out there as a parent who went through it with my own players. I don't want anybody, and I made it a point with our coaches last night too. I don't want anybody to feel that way. So.
No, Coach, I appreciate you sharing that because I know, through one of my sons, moving through the junior program and now entering the high school as a part of just what you do, you go out there to the practices and you talk to the parents and the team and the players. Everybody's
Right.
on the same page. So I take it more of those type of communications and meetings will be held on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
field and, just allow folks to ask questions and set the expectations.
Yeah, and what's neat here too, Carl, is I really, really, when you get out there and you see all these kids, it's a true sense of community, right? We're building a true sense of community here, a Seckman community, where these kids are growing up wanting to be Seckman football players, and that's cool, that's exciting, and really anybody that's doing anything opposite of that doesn't need to be here. So I'm excited because it just really there's not a lot of things, sometimes, down here in the valley, it's not always the tightest, everybody's so spread out. But man, when we all come together, in this case, in the name of football, it really does bring a sense of community to what we're doing.
No, it is a sight to behold watching just from the middle school, like upper,
Yeah.
hill, and you see the massive humanity of players and coaches out there. It's just an amazing sight to see. So we're so encouraged by these numbers, and again, we look forward to more of the updates as we get into it. And Coach, kind of going back to the Valley, saw the tweet there from the superintendent talking about a new addition to the stadium, new LED lights. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and what makes these lights special.
Yeah, it's really neat because we're seeing investment, right? Investment into our community, investment into our facilities. As you started the podcast, this is the third year in a row that we're making a major change. Obviously 3 years, going back to 2 seasons ago, 3 years ago, we got the new turf, right? Then the net last year we get the scoreboard. This year, the LED lights, and this was something that the lights were getting outdated, especially at Fox, and a lot of times within our district, if something happens at Fox, it's got to happen at Seckman. The only thing that never happened with was Fox's $300,000 press box, but
We'll work on
I'll
that one,
leave that.
Coach.
I'll leave that one for another day, I
Yeah.
guess. But um, I'm not bitter about that. But we got these lights, and for me, and for what it's going to do for our athletes, it just kind of adds a little bit to the game day experience. We're going to get a better light during the gameplay, obviously. And then, yeah, if you were at any Fox things last year, you kind of see how you get the different flashes and the different colors. Our athletic director, Dave Castrop, he was actually up there last night testing it out for the first time. So if you drove by, you may have seen the blue and the yellow, the purple, the this, that, the other. I mean, it's like a disco down there if you really wanted it to be. So, it's going to add to that game day experience for our players and our athletes. And why not? These kids work hard, they deserve it, and it's an investment into our kids. And for me, I'm always about things that we can touch and feel and see. When I read in the paper that we spent $1 million on curriculum or whatever, I'm not touching and feel. I can't see that, right? But when you read in the paper, okay, hey, well, we spent a lot of money, but hey, this is something that our athletes are actually benefiting from. You can feel it, you can touch it, you can see it. That's why I'm so big on investment in our facilities. And maybe this time next year we're talking about a new weight room. Hey, Carl, how about that? I'll cross my fingers. I got a lot of work to do for that and a lot of people to convince. But
I'm keeping a list. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we are getting to a point, with these different things, we might be able to fiscally support that on our own. So I'm excited about the lights. I know the boys will like it, and it's great to see the investment into our facilities and into our kids.
Yeah, it's so nice to see. I think back to like when the turf, the new turf was rolled out. That was, it was just an amazing going from that playing surface to our new one, and then the scoreboard, and then having these lights. The Valley will be rocking, no doubt about that. Come Friday, and then the other sports as well. You think about like soccer and lacrosse and everything else that goes on that field. Everybody wins.
We just got to give them a reason to turn them on, right?
That's right. Well,
we'll work on that.
Yeah. I know there's some college teams that during timeouts, they flash the lights, but I don't know if that's for TV or not, but we'll make sure to use that. But no, we're excited, and Coach, appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. Want to remind everybody that we do have this podcast available not only on Facebook, but also on our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Apple Podcast is audio only, but really cool feature on there, Coach, is that you could scrub ahead and AI will put together the different topics. So if you want to skip ahead or go back to your favorite part, you could do so quite easily. And one other milestone we hit on Facebook, we're over 900 followers.
Okay.
I never would have imagined that. The last podcast we had over 1,300 viewers, Coach. The one before that had almost 5,000. And I promise you, it's not my mom and dad leaving YouTube on a loop. So having the interest in the program is exciting, and it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, I would say, Carl, we certainly appreciate everybody listening and taking interest in our community and our football program, and the things that we're saying. I think that originally when we started this out, that's what we wanted. We wanted to kind of open up the book a little bit, kind of let everybody see what's happening inside the program, and hopefully everybody feels that way, and we appreciate everybody coming back for more, no doubt.
All right. And so, Coach, we're coming up on time here. We covered a lot. Anything else you would like to add as we wrap up the first part of the summer, and now we start to move into camp?
It's time to play football. Let's get her done.
All right. Well said. And, we thank everybody for watching, and we'll catch everybody on the next one.
Thanks, Carl.